A corrupt judge thought he could humiliate the wrong man in his courtroom. But what happened next flipped his entire career upside down and shook the system to its core. The city heat was relentless, wrapping everything in a thick, suffocating blanket. The asphalt shimmered under the weight of the midday sun, making the air itself look like it was trying to escape. Marcus Randolph adjusted his navy blue suit, straightened his tie, and climbed the courthouse steps with the confidence of a man who knew the law. He had been inside these walls before, but never as a defendant. This whole mess started that morning. Same routine, same spot, every Wednesday. He parked outside the cafe where he met his old friends. It was their ritual: coffee, laughter, and catching up. But when he returned to his car, something was off. A bright yellow parking ticket sat under the windshield wiper like an unwelcome guest. Unauthorized parking. Marcus frowned. He knew this place like the back of his hand. There were no signs. The parking lines were clear. No way he had violated anything. Something wasn't right. He could have paid the fine. Sure, it would have been the easy way out. But easy wasn't his style, not when the law was being bent against him. He stepped inside the courthouse, where the air conditioning barely fought off the oppressive heat. "Good afternoon, sir. I'd like to dispute this ticket." The woman at the registration desk didn't even glance up. "Forms are on the table. Fill one out and wait for your name to be called." Marcus exhaled, took a seat, and settled in for the wait. Around him, people whispered, some tapping impatient fingers against their thighs. A man in a wrinkled polo muttered about a bogus speeding ticket. A young woman rubbed her temples, her expression one of pure frustration. Same place, same nonsense. 40 minutes later, a voice echoed through the old, crackling speaker. "Marcus Randolph, courtroom 3. He stood up and made his way inside. The courtroom was small, cold, not in temperature, but in the way it drained warmth from the people inside. The judge sat at his bench, a man whose mere presence sucked the air out of the room. His thin lips curled slightly as he scanned the papers before him. His ice-blue eyes flicked up, locking onto Marcus. "Marcus Randolph," he said, voice slow, deliberate. "You're disputing a parking violation?" "Yes, Your Honor. My vehicle was parked legally. I believe there's been a mistake." A smirk ghosted across the judge's face. "You believe?" He turned a monitor toward Marcus. A grainy image filled the screen, the front of his car, the curb, a signpost just barely out of frame. "As you can see, the parking inspector documented your vehicle in a restricted zone." Marcus leaned in, eyes narrowing. The angle of the photo was no accident. The sign that allowed parking, conveniently cropped out. "Your Honor, this evidence is incomplete. I can provide footage from a different angle that proves." "Are you challenging this court's ruling, Mr. Randolph?" The judge's voice hardened. He leaned forward, fingers tapping against the bench. "You seem to misunderstand how this works. The fine stands. $500. Pay it or I'll add court fees." The tension in the room thickened. A few people exchanged glances. Even those waiting for their own hearings seemed to recognize what was happening. $500? That's outrageous. Marcus's voice sharpened. "I broke no law." The judge's smile disappeared. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the gavel. "You have quite the attitude, Mr. Randolph. Let's make this official then. The fine is now $1,000. A sharp inhale cut through the room. Marcus stared at him, disbelief boiling into something heavier. This wasn't just about a ticket. This was personal. "This isn't justice." The judge tilted his head, his expression cool, unaffected. "You're dismissed, Mr. Randolph. Pay the fine within 48 hours, or I'll issue a bench warrant. Silence. The kind that burns in the chest. The kind that makes you want to slam your fist into a desk. But Marcus didn't move. He wasn't about to back down. Marcus stepped out of the courthouse, fists clenched so tight his nails nearly broke skin. The heat outside didn't feel any different from the heat inside that courtroom. Thick, heavy, suffocating. But Marcus, he wasn't the type to bow his head. Not today. Not ever. As he made his way down the courthouse steps, he caught murmurs from the small crowd gathered outside. Some of them had been in that courtroom. They saw what happened. They knew the truth. That judge lost his mind. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He was enjoying it. Marcus took a deep breath, pulled out his phone, and hit a familiar contact. He didn't need to think twice about who to call. Eddie, I need your advice. Judge Wells just hit me with the most blatant abuse of power I've seen in a long time. Tell me you're joking. Eddie Morris had been Marcus's attorney and best friend for years. If there was one person who knew how to take a corrupt official apart, brick by brick, it was him. I wish I was. The man doubled my fine just because I challenged him. Eddie let out a sharp breath. That old fool is at it again. He's been pulling this nonsense for years. I'm filing an appeal first thing in the morning. Marcus shook his head. An appeal wouldn't be enough. Wells had been playing this game for too long, too comfortably. It was time to shake things up.
No, Eddie.
We need to do more than just appeal. We need to expose him. Eddie paused, then let out a low chuckle. That chuckle that said, oh, this is about to get real. All right, Marcus. Let's turn up the heat. Meanwhile, Judge George Wells slipped out through the courthouse's side exit. He never used the front doors, too many people, too many eyes. He preferred a quiet departure, unnoticed. But today something felt different. There was a weight in the air. He tried to shake it off as he walked toward his car. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked the screen. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello. The voice on the other end was sharp, clipped with frustration. George, what the hell are you doing? Wells smirked, unlocking his car. Handling business as always. You need to be careful. People are watching. You can't keep pulling this stunt with every black man who walks into your courtroom. Wells exhaled slowly, his smirk fading just a little. Relax. I've got everything under control. That guy today, he got what he deserved. There was silence on the line before the voice spoke again. Lower this time. That's exactly what you said last time. And yet, here we are. Before Wells could respond, the call ended. He shoved his phone in his pocket. But the unease stayed with him. That feeling in his gut. One he hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Wells was sipping his coffee when his office door burst open. His secretary, usually composed and professional, looked rattled. Sir, you need to see this. She spun his laptop toward him. The screen was already playing a video of him. Judge caught blatantly targeting black man in court. He clicked play. The footage was shaky, clearly recorded on a phone from inside the courtroom. But it was enough. There he was, sitting on that bench, smirking, dismissing Marcus's evidence, doubling his fine out of pure arrogance. The video was already viral. The comments were pouring in. This isn't justice. This is corruption. Another racist judge caught red-handed. When will it end? How many lives has this guy ruined? Wells's face drained of color. He gripped the desk, his coffee forgotten. Who posted this? The secretary hesitated. We don't know. But the news stations already picked it up. His chest tightened. This wasn't just some minor controversy. This was public outrage. And public outrage was dangerous. Marcus sat in his car when his phone rang. He answered, already knowing who it was. "Eddie, hope you're ready, because the whole world just saw what happened in that courtroom." Marcus smiled, watching his screen light up with notifications. The battle had officially begun. "Get ready, Eddie. We're about to flip this whole thing on its head. We've reached the breaking point. Everything you've been waiting for is about to go down. Stay tuned. You do not want to miss what happens next." Judge George Wells sat frozen at his desk, his phone buzzing relentlessly in his trembling hands. Every new message felt like a gut punch, each one carrying the same underlying message: this was bad. "George, what the hell have you done? This isn't just another case, it's everywhere. Fix it now. This could cost you your seat. If you don't get ahead of it, you're finished. The DA is already watching. Do you want to go down over a parking ticket?" His stomach twisted. His hands were slick with sweat. This couldn't be happening. Not to him. He had ruled over cases far more controversial than some minor traffic violation. He had dismissed appeals, tossed out evidence, shut down defense attorneys for years, all without consequences. So why now? He swiped his thumb across the screen, switching to news alerts. His name was plastered across headlines. Judge Wells under fire for alleged racial bias in courtroom. Leaked footage sparks outrage. Did this judge cross the line? Governor's office silent on courtroom incident. For now. Wells swallowed hard. That last one hit differently. His mind raced. This wasn't just some internet outrage that would fizzle out in 48 hours. This wasn't going to disappear with a simple press release. The governor's office was watching. His pulse spiked. He needed to control this. Without hesitation, he scrolled through his contacts and called the one man who was supposed to keep this from spiraling. The phone rang twice before the other end clicked. "You guaranteed me that footage wouldn't be a problem." Wells spat before the person could even greet him. A pause. Then a familiar voice, calm and unconcerned. "Officer Donaldson, the traffic inspector." "Judge, I just did my job." Wells gritted his teeth, his grip tightening around the phone. "Your job?" His voice dropped into something sharp and dangerous. "Your job was to make sure that ticket stuck. That video should have never left the courtroom." Donaldson exhaled, slow and measured. "Look, I followed procedure. If someone in that room recorded it, that's on you." Wells's blood boiled. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Do you have any idea what happens if this reaches the ethics board?" Silence. Then click. Donaldson had hung up. For the first time in his long, comfortable career, Wells felt something he wasn't used to. Panic. He had always been the one in control. His word had always been law. He had dismissed countless complaints, silenced attorneys who pushed too hard, and ruled however he saw fit without losing a moment's sleep. But now the machine he had relied on was backing away. He wasn't just losing control. He was losing power. The thought sent a chill through him. He glanced at his office door, half expecting someone to burst in with worse news. And then, right on cue, there was a sharp knock. Before he could even answer, the door swung open. His assistant stepped inside, looking pale, like he had just seen a ghost. "Sir, someone's here to see you." Wells frowned, sitting up straighter. "Who?" The assistant shifted nervously, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. "The governor." Wells's stomach turned to stone. He gripped the desk, his fingers digging into the polished wood. "What do you mean, the governor?" His voice came out hoarse. His assistant hesitated, then stepped aside, opening the door wider, and in walked Marcus Randolph. Calm, steady, unshaken, like a man who already knew exactly how this would end. Judge Wells's throat went dry, his pulse hammering against his ribs, because now, standing in his office, he realized the truth. Marcus Randolph wasn't just some man fighting a parking ticket. He was the governor of the state. Wells sat frozen, his mind struggling to catch up with reality. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Marcus Randolph, Governor Marcus Randolph, was sitting across from him, calm, composed, and looking at him like he had already decided his fate. Marcus adjusted his cufflink, exhaled slowly, then tilted his head, studying the man before him. You wanted me to pay a fine? Let's talk about who really owes who. Wells swallowed hard. His shirt, which had been crisp and neatly pressed that morning, now clung to his back with sweat. His throat was dry, his mind scrambling for a way out of this nightmare. How was this possible? Marcus leaned back in his chair, a slow smile forming at the corner of his mouth. I told you in court. I didn't break the law, but you weren't interested in that. You were too busy trying to make an example out of me. Wells's breath hitched. His hands curled into fists beneath the desk. He had spent years commanding this room, making men and women tremble with a single ruling. But now he was the one being judged. Listen, this is just a misunderstanding. Wells started, his voice weaker than he intended. I didn't know who you were. Marcus's expression didn't change. And if you did, would that have made a difference? Wells stammered, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I mean, of course not. I always act within the law. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping into something cold, something sharp. No, you don't. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I pulled your records, Wells. Marcus continued, his tone even, but laced with something lethal. 80% of the black defendants who stood in front of you received the maximum possible sentence. 80%. Wells's lips parted, but no words came out. Meanwhile, similar cases with white defendants, probation, community service, a slap on the wrist. The silence in the office was suffocating. The weight of those words settled in the space between them like a verdict already delivered. Wells had spent his career holding the gavel, deciding fates with a flick of his wrist. But now the judgment was his to face. If anything, Marcus's voice remained steady, but his eyes burned with something deeper than anger. This isn't just about me. It never was. Wells gripped the edge of his desk as if it could somehow ground him. You can't just accuse me of racism, he sputtered, his voice cracking. That's not how this works. This is a witch hunt.
A witch hunt.
Marcus cut in, his tone unreadable. No, Judge. This is accountability. Before Wells could respond, the door swung open. A group of people filed in, journalists, government officials, cameras already rolling. The assistant district attorney stepped forward, holding a folder thick with papers. Judge George Wells, she announced, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Effective immediately, you're being placed on administrative leave, pending an official investigation into judicial misconduct and systemic bias. The flash of cameras filled the room. Wells shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. His face was red, his body trembling with something between rage and sheer panic. This is a setup. You can't do this to me. His voice cracked, desperate. I am a judge. I am the law. Marcus stood as well, straightening his suit jacket before leveling his gaze at the man before him. No, Wells, he said, his voice cool, unshaken. This is the law. The news spread like wildfire. What started as a simple parking dispute had turned into a national reckoning. Every major outlet ran the story on repeat. Talk shows debated it. Social media was on fire. Judge George Wells exposed. Governor Randolph takes down corrupt judge. Judicial bias uncovered. How many lives were affected? Judge removed amidst growing scandal. For the first time in his career, Wells wasn't in control. Within days, the Judicial Ethics Committee launched a full-scale investigation. Attorneys demanded old cases be reopened. Families came forward with stories of unfair sentences, wrongful convictions, blatant discrimination. By the end of the week, the verdict was in. Judge Wells was removed from the bench. No appeal. No second chances. His career was over. But it didn't stop there. Investigators dug deeper. They found years of disproportionate rulings against black defendants. Cases that should have been dismissed but weren't. Sentences that should have been fair but weren't. Lawsuits started piling up. Wells's name became political poison. His former allies, the same ones who once defended him, were scrambling to distance themselves. For decades, he ruled his courtroom like a king. Now he was the one being judged. The press conference. Hundreds of people packed the courthouse steps. Reporters pushed forward, microphones raised, cameras flashing. The air was charged with something electric. Anger, hope, the feeling that something real was happening. Marcus Randolph stepped to the podium, scanning the crowd before he spoke. "This isn't about me," he said, his voice steady, powerful. "This is about every person who ever walked into a courtroom and knew, before a single word was spoken, that they didn't stand a chance." Silence. Everyone listened. This is about justice, about accountability, about making sure men like Wells can never use their power like a weapon again. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "They want us to believe we're powerless," Marcus continued, "that we just have to accept this, that this is just how things are. But today we prove them wrong. When we stand up, when we fight back, when we expose the truth, change happens." The applause started slow. Then it erupted. Marcus took a step back, locking eyes with Eddie, who stood nearby with a knowing grin. This wasn't just one victory. This was the beginning of something bigger. For years, the system had tried to break men like him. But today, justice won. Justice isn't just about laws. It's about holding those in power accountable. One man's fight exposed a broken system, but this is only the beginning. If you think this story ends here, think again.